So you guys just finished learning about the Boston Massacre. Obviously, the Boston Massacre is an example of angry protests gone wrong. And the colonists are very upset, and they think that it shows that the king doesn't care about the colonists. He sends their troops there to try to control them. His troops are firing on innocent colonists. Of course, if you've read the information and you've looked at the videos, you'll find that the colonists weren't exactly innocent. They were taunting the soldiers, they were throwing snowballs at them, or they were throwing rocks at them, and there was actually a crowd of almost 400 colonists surrounding the soldiers. And it had started with the one soldier who called for help, and then the other soldiers came in to try to help him out. And at this time, the British soldiers weren't even allowed to walk around with their guns loaded. So, and the colonists knew that. So they knew when they started picking on the soldier that they were picking on a soldier who was under orders not to harm them. And so they tried to push it as far as they could. Unfortunately, they pushed it too far. The soldiers, in a panic, somebody heard the word fire, and so he fired his gun, and then the other soldiers fired, and before you know it, there are 5 people dying on the ground and another 6 wounded. The captain of that group of soldiers, Captain Prescott, actually stood in front of the soldiers and risked his own life trying to get them to stop firing. But as you can imagine, or as you learned, it didn't really help. So what happens after this is the king decides that he needs to pull some of those troops out of Boston, because the troops that he has sent to Boston to make the colonists behave have actually caused more problems. So he removes the troops from Boston, but what happens is now the colonists don't have so many people watching them, and they can kind of pick up on their secret Sons of Liberty, Daughters of Liberty protest activities and meetings and all sorts of stuff. So one of the things that they have meetings about is tea. They repealed or took away the Townshend Acts, but they kept one tax, just one, and that was the tax on tea. And this angered the colonists, but not for reasons that you think. The tax on tea was actually a tax on tea that was cheaper with the tax than it was to buy other tea that didn't have the tax. But what the British government did, and for many complicated reasons that we don't have to get into right now, but what they did is they taxed this tea, but the price of the tea was really cheap. So the taxed tea was cheaper than other tea. However, they were trying to force the colonists to buy that tea, which was tea that came from the British East India Company. So it was British tea. They didn't want them to buy any other foreign tea. And they got to choose, the government chose who got to sell the tea. So the colonists got upset, again, because the British government was making decisions without their consent or their permission. And they were trying to tell them what to do, who could sell the tea, what tea they had to buy. So it wasn't the cost of the tea. It was the fact that they had no representation and were being told what to do. So the big slogan that you hear during these times is no taxation without representation. And this tea tax is going to lead to an event that I know most of you already know about, but I'm going to let you discover a little bit more about it on your own.